Hi everyone. In this video I will be showing you how to create and write custom query in Spring Boot while connecting to MySQL database. So let's get started. So if you have already done setting up your Spring Boot project as well as connecting with your MySQL database and creating a table, you can just go to the timestamp that is appearing on top. And if you want to set up your Spring Boot project from scratch and connect it with MySQL database, you can just continue watching the tutorial.
So you need to just go to your browser and you need to search for Spring Initializer. You will be getting this first link over here, Spring Initializer. Just click it, and here you need to add the dependencies as well as the name of your project and the versions. So I will go with Gradle Groovy, that is fine. Language is Java, and let me just now change the name as Spring Pro, something like that. You can just give it to everywhere. Yeah, you can just paste it and you can just change it here as well. Yeah, this is totally up to your choice, and jar is fine, and Java 17 works for me, so these are fine now. So we will be using some dependencies over here. So just click on add dependency, and first thing we need to search for Spring Web. Just add it, Spring Web, and I'll click again add dependency, and next one is going to be the Spring Data JPA. So it's going to be Spring Data JPA. Here we will be having, and I will add the MySQL driver as well, MySQL driver, and final one is going to be Lombok. The reason why I'm adding Lombok is because we don't want to manually create the getters and setters or the constructors. We can just use the annotations present inside Lombok. So these are basically the 4 dependencies that I'm adding. So this is the entire stuff. All right. So once you are done creating all these, you need to just click on generate. So it will be getting downloaded in a form of a zip file. So here you can see, right, Spring Pro. So now let me just go to my downloads folder. So here you can see it is in a form of a WinRAR zip file. So just right click it and just click on extract files and just click on OK. So it will be getting extracted over here itself. Yeah, so here you can see this is the file. We'll be having source and main.test. So this is the .java file over here. Yeah. So this is the file. So now let me just open this particular folder as a project in IntelliJ. So for that, just go to IntelliJ IDEA, and after opening IntelliJ IDEA, you need to go to File, I need to go to Open, I need to go to Downloads, and here we will be having the Spring Pro, the Spring project. Okay, just click on that and click on OK, and just click on this window. So at first it will take some time to load, so just be patient. I think it will take some time for indexing as well as the Gradle to build. So just be patient at first. So here you can see it will be showing you updating index and importing Gradle. So Gradle build. So these two processes are really important, and you need to wait for some time until both the processes are getting completed. So here you can see now all the processes have been now completed and there is no loading or anything like that. So first thing what we need to do is we will be just going to my main Java, and here you can see this is my main application over here. So now we will be making some changes in application.properties. So for that, where you need to go is you need to go to resources, and here you will be having application.properties. Just double click it, and here you will be having the application.properties. So first we will be adding our local URL of our MySQL database. So it's going to be spring dot data source dot URL equal to jdbc colon MySQL colon / localhost colon 3306 / and next you need to specify your database name that is going to be present in your MySQL workbench. So I will just name it as new DB, and you need to specify colon 3306 because this is not like the random port number. This is the port number where MySQL workbench is running. So be specific to that. So once you are added your database, you need to create this particular database in MySQL workbench. Otherwise, it will throw you an error. So I will just go to my MySQL workbench and create this particular database new DB. And if I just now refresh it over here, I'll be having the database created. So this is fine. And next thing we need to specify the username and password of your MySQL database. So let me just now copy this thing. So it's going to be spring.datasource dot username. I need to specify the username, which is root for me. This may vary from person to person. And again, spring.datasource dot password. So you need to specify your password. Let me specify mine. So this is fine. These are some of the credentials that we need to give over here. So after this, we will be using some connections or properties for our connection. So it's going to be spring dot jpa dot show hyphen SQL equal to true. So this command is basically like used to display the SQL command in our console. So I told you like we will be creating a table at the end. So the creation of that particular table and its SQL command will be displayed at the console. So that's the reason why we are adding this particular property. And next thing are going to be some of the default properties. Okay, it's going to be spring dot jpa dot generate and hyphen ddl equal to true. Next one is going to be spring dot jpa dot hibernate dot ddl dot auto equal to update. And final thing, let me just now copy this and paste it. Dot properties dot hibernate dot dialect equal to org dot, you'll be having hibernate dot dialect dot ISQL8 dialect. Okay, so here to be careful. M is capital, Y is small, SQL or caps, 8, D is capital, and dialect.
So once you're done adding all the values in application.properties, you need to come to the folder where you have your main Spring application. Okay, so by default the name would be com dot, it will be your project name. Okay, so you need to just right click over here and we will be adding like 4 folders or directory. So the names of the folders is going to be entity, repository, controller, and service. Okay, so it will sound confusing. I will just create them first. So it's going to be new, and here we will be having an option called as package over here. Just click it. So first I will be creating the entity folder. Okay, just capital E, type entity, just hit enter. Okay, so after that we'll be getting this entity. So don't make any changes. Okay, don't rewrite that particular thing. Okay, so again after right clicking I will be going with package. So what I meant was here we'll be having a dot. Okay, so don't just remove that. And next thing is going to be the repository. Yeah, and next one is going to be controller and the service. It's going to be the service. So it's not necessary to have like this folder structure, but it's always good to implement. So it's more easy to read your code. In companies generally they will have this way. So it's always better to practice having separate folders for each purpose of your file. So the final one is going to be our controller. So it's going to be controller. Yeah. So first we will be starting with the entity. So entity basically will have the Java file in which we will specify our table as well as its columns and its data members. Okay. So just click on entity, right click, new. You will be having this Java class. Click that. I will name the class name as student because I'm just going to like input student details as a demo purpose. Enter this class name. You can enter whatever you want. After that, just click on class and hit enter. So here we will be having the student class created for us. So through this class, we will be able to add properties and column names for our table that we are going to create in our MySQL. Okay. So just imagine this as a class representation of a table. Okay. Basically that's it. So first let me add the column names. Okay. After that I will go and annotating the particular main class. So it's going to be, I will have here 3 columns, which is ID, mark, and name. So it's going to be private, have it as int ID. So this is going to be like the primary key, the unique key. Yeah. So for representing it as a primary key, we will be having the ID annotation. Okay, ID, just hit enter. And I will also add a column name. Okay, so we can specify the column name manually as well by using the column annotation. Like if you want the default ID to be the column name, you can also have that. I will just have this. So just open bracket, have name, and I will just give it as ID. That's it. And for this ID to be auto incremented or auto generated value, we can just have the generated value function. Okay, yeah. So these are some of the standard stuff that everyone uses for a particular unique ID in the column. So next one is going to be the mark and name. So it's going to be private. It's going to be of type int and it's mark. Yeah, and same thing, column. It's going to be the loan annotation column, and name is going to be students mark, like that. And the final one is going to be the name, private. This is of type string with capital S, and I will put name, and it will also have the column annotation. Okay, column, I will have the name equal to, I will just go with the standard name, that's it. Yeah, no worries, this is now fine. So these are some of the columns that we'll be having in our table. So after doing all this, we need to also add some main annotations to our student class. Okay, so the first annotation is the entity. So entity is like we will be referencing Spring Boot that this particular class corresponds to that particular table present in MySQL DB. Okay, so that's what the entity annotation does. It's important to have that. And next we will be using the data annotation. This is present inside Lombok. So whenever we are creating a class, we need to have all those getters, setters, as well as so many things are there. But by using this data annotation, this will automatically create all the getters and setters for each and every data member for our class. So always better to use Lombok and this data annotation. So after this, we will be also having the table. Okay, so this table annotation exactly similar to column annotation, by through which we will be referencing our table name. So this particular name that we will be specifying over here is going to be the table name in our MySQL DB. So I will just have a name it as, I will go with student underscore DB, something like that. Yeah, so this is now fine. So after this, we can also add the constructors. So it's going to be capital N, I guess. Yeah, the no org constructor. So same thing, we also need to create a constructor and initialize the values. So we need to have an empty constructor as well as a constructor with the data members value. So these are some of the standard stuff. So by using these annotations, we can like bypass those things as they are automatically done with the help of these annotations. So it's going to be all logs constructor. Okay, yeah, some of the standard things. So now we are good with our entity class. So after this, we will be creating a repository interface. So it is not a class, it is an interface. So which is also used to basically like reference to this particular entity. So it is like this. Okay, every entity of a table in Spring Boot will have a repository of its own, through which we will be able to execute queries and other stuff. Okay, so just imagine it as that way. So just come to your repository folder. Now we are done with our student.java. I will just close it. Okay, just close this as well. Yeah, and I'll just come to repository, right click, new. It's going to be of Java class, but it's going to be of type repository. Okay, I will just name it as student repo. Okay, it's also always good to have in camel case. Just hit enter, and if you want to name this as student entity, you can also do that. Okay, just name it as student entity. It's your total choice. It will be more like readable and understandable if you have that way. In case of like you're having more number of files, since I'm having only one file, I will just name it as student. Okay, so that is good. So now let me come to my repository, and here you can see, right, this is an interface. Okay, this is not a class. So student repo, first thing we need to have extends. Okay, this is a keyword extends, and after this we need to add the JPA repository, which is like an inbuilt class of Spring Boot. So it's going to be JPA capital J. Okay, capital J. We will be having the JPA repository over here. Just hit enter. So through this way we will be able to perform all the CRUD operations to our database or entity. So just expand this. Okay, yeah, we will be having this greater than lesser than symbol, and within that we need to specify our class name of our entity. So my class name over here is student. Okay, so you need to specify that first over here. So it's going to be student. You will be having here, yeah, student, here it is. Okay, you need to specify the class name, and this will get automatically imported, and a comma, and here we need to specify the data type of the primary key of our student class. So student class is over here, and the data type of our primary key is of type integer. Okay, so you need to specify the data type of the primary key. So it's going to be obviously integers in 99 of the cases. Okay, 99% of cases. So just specify the data type of the primary key, it is integer. Okay, so that's it. Now we are done with our repository, and entity is also done, repository is done. So next thing we have only service and controller. So what service basically does is that it allows us to perform the post, save, put, fetch, all the operations. Okay, so I'll just go to service, right click it, and new, and this time it's going to be a plain Java class, not any interface or something. So I will just type it as student service. Always good to use camel case. Okay, use camel case everywhere. Okay, and I will just now hit enter. So we'll be getting the service. I will close the repository, and in the service we will be able to access the entity through the repository variable. Okay, so the repository object, we can't access an entity directly. Okay, so only with the help of the repo we will be able to access the objects or data members or the functions that are present inside our entity student. I hope that made sense. So in the service, the first important thing is we need to annotate the service. Okay, so it's going to be at service annotation to reference it as a service class. So after this, we will be creating our reference variable or object of our repository. So as I told you earlier, we will be only able to access the student class details through the repository object. Okay, with this help of the object of student repo. So I will create that. Okay, so it's going to be private. The name is student repo. Yeah, so I will name it as the small s. Okay, student repo. Yeah, this is a naming convention. Okay, whenever you are creating a variable, the first thing should be the class name itself, and after that the variable name should be the smaller letter of that particular class name itself. So it's like a common naming convention used. So we will be able to access only the values present in our main student class with the help of this variable or object. Okay, also you need to annotate with this auto void. Okay, yeah. So this is used for basically like dependency injection or referencing our repository variable over here. So you need to use this auto void, otherwise you will be getting an error. Okay, so now we are done. So next thing, we will be creating a function for saving or posting the data. Okay, because that is our main aim in this video. Okay, we need to post and save data in the database. So for that, we will be creating a function. So it's going to be public. You need to create it as public. Okay, because we will be using this function in our controller. Okay, controller will be having a Java class, and we will be using that particular function over there. So it's always good to have our function as public. And the return type of this particular function is going to be of student. Okay, student means this particular class. Okay, this main entity class. So it's going to be of type student. And next is the name of our function. I will have it as save details. You can name it as anything you want. And the function is going to have only one parameter. That parameter is going to be an object of the class student. So what I meant by object is that it's going to be like these things: ID, mark, and name. So these are like data members, and this particular parameter will have all these values as an object inside it. So it's going to be student. Yeah, student. I will go with the same naming convention, like with a small s after that. Yeah, student. So after this, we will be returning it. Okay, because since we have used student over here, we need to return it. Return. We'll be using the repo name. As I told you, for accessing the values or saving anything, we'll be using the repo object or variable. So it's going to be return student repo dot, and here we'll be having so many functions. Okay, so in that we'll be using the save. So this basically saves our data in our table. As simple as that, save, and inside that we will to pass our object. Okay, student, this variable. Okay, this variable over here. So this student will have all the details like ID, mark, and name in our object form, and we are just saving it in the table. Simple. So now we are done with our entity, and the final thing that is left is our controller. So the main purpose of controller is defining the path and the operation. So here you can see, right, let me go to my postman. So here you can see, right, we will be having so many operations: post, put, fetch, and delete. There are so many operations, and we will be also having this particular path or the route. Okay, add student. For post we will be having, for put we will be having put, delete we will be having slash delete. So we will specify all these details in the controller. So just right click controller, new, we will be having the Java class. Select it. I will just name it as what is a student controller. Yeah, simple controller, like that, class. Okay, everything is class except repository. Okay, and we'll be getting the student controller over here. And we will begin by annotating the controller class with rest controller. Okay, so this is to specify that this is a controller class. So after that, we will be creating a service variable. Okay, so here in service, okay, in service, we had an object of student repo. Exactly similar to that, in our controller, we will be having an object of the service class. Okay, so service class name is student service. Okay, so I will just go to my controller. So it's going to be private student, I think it's capital S. Yeah, student, will be having the student service. Okay, so we'll be creating a variable of our service. Okay, student service. I hope that made sense. This one, student service. Yeah, and you can name it after that. It's going to be the same thing, the small s student service. Yeah, And we will also annotate with auto wire, exact same thing for referencing it. Yeah, so we are done. And after this, we'll be creating another function. So here the main route or the path for our post operation will be specified. So as I told you, right, this particular path needs a function. Okay, every path will have a function to its own. So I'll just come here. The function, as I told you, is going to be public. Okay, in most of the cases, public, and it's going to be of the type student. Okay, student as usual, the main entity, and it's going to be, I will have it as add details or post. Okay, post details. Okay, post details, that's going to be the name. And after that, this will take an argument. Okay, so this argument is going to be of type student. Okay, same student. Okay, same student everywhere, student, and the smallest student. Okay, but we need to also add a particular annotation which is at request body. Okay, so the reason is because we will be sending data over here. Okay, we will be sending data from our postman. So where is that? This raw. Yeah, so we'll be sending a JSON data from our postman, and with the help of this request body, that particular data will be fetched by the student object. Okay, so once we are hitting that particular path, this particular data will be fetched by this particular function. Okay, so I will like add the path and it will make more sense after that. So in this function, we'll be having at post mapping. So to reference that, this particular function will handle the post operation in this class or controller. So we need that post mapping. So in general, we will be using post mapping for post operations. So this will take the path. So I will go with add student. Okay, so now I hope it will make more sense. So this add student will come over here. Okay, will come over here after this port number slash, that particular add student will be coming here. So when I send the data as a request, this particular data will be then caught by this particular request body of student. Okay, then this student will have basically these details. So I hope now it will be clear for you. So inside this function, exact same thing, we have to return it. Okay, so it's going to be return, and we'll be using this service, student service. So it's going to be student service dot, and with the help of the student service variable, we will be accessing this particular function inside our student service. You know this function, right? Save details we created earlier. So with the help of this variable that we have created in our controller, we will be able to access this particular save details function. Okay, so it will be dot save details. Within that, we will be pass the student variable. Okay, so that's the code. So now let me explain you how this works in a simple term. Okay, so I'll just close these things. Only the main thing is going to be controller and the service. Okay, rest are just standard stuff. So I will go to my postman. So I'll just explain it in a demo way. After that, I will run and show you. So we'll be adding the local host, the student, the path. After that, we will like have a JSON data, and whenever we hit send, this particular path slash student will be hit. Okay, so after hitting that, it will come over here. This path will be like, it will check whether we are having this add student path. So this particular path that we have sent in postman matches with this path. So it will come over here, and we are having the request body annotation with the student object. Okay, so this data that we have sent over here will be now present inside the student variable, this variable, with the help of this request body annotation. So after this student variable will be having these values. It will come over here. Here you can see it's student service dot save details student. So basically we are passing all this data to the save details function, which is present inside our service. Okay, so now I will go to my service, this particular save details function. So I'll go here. The save details function is also having a parameter of student. Okay, so now this student will be referenced to as this student over here. Okay, it's like function calls basically. So what happens is that this data will now come to the function save details present inside our service from the controller. So it's like that. It's from the postman data to our controller function, and from the controller function it goes to our service function, and in the service function we are just saving it with the help of dot save through our repo, like the repository variable that we have created earlier. So because of this dot save, it gets then saved in our MySQL workbench or database table. So this is the entire workflow. Okay, so this is how it will work. So now let me just run and show you this program. Okay, just come to this Spring Pro application. That is the main file. If you aren't having this run thing, just right click it and you just click on run project. And if you aren't having this edit configurations, I will just open it. So yeah, This is my edit configuration. Here I need to specify the Java, the main thing, and here I need to specify the working directory. So these are the standard stuff, and I'll just now close it. And now in my database, okay, so this is my database. I will go to tables. I'm having only my table, so I'm not having the table, any table named as student. So here in entity, right, we have specified the table name to be as student DB. So if this program runs successfully, we need to get the student DB automatically created over here, and after that we will be sending some data from our postman. So I will just now run the code. I hope it works. A lot of effort into it, and I don't want to get any errors right now. So I will run it. So after some time, you will be getting some logs like this, and if you get this final thing as Spring application started, so which means that there aren't any errors. And here you can see, right, we will be getting some SQL commands over here as well. So here you can see, right, create table student DB. So if I just now go to my MySQL workbench, and if I just now refresh it, so here you can see that I will be having the student DB over here. So if I just now go to my select asterisk from, I will just run student, and I will go with underscore DB. And if I just now run it, we will be having 3 columns, which is going to be of type ID, ST, mark, and name. So here you can see, right, where is that? Yeah, this particular name that I've specified over here will be directly coming to the column name, as simple as that. And another important thing you need to note here is that the port number on which your Spring Boot application is running. So if I just now come here, so here you can see, right, our Spring Boot has now started on port 8080. So this is like the default port. So now let's see what happens when we post data from our postman, because that's our aim over here. We need to save data. Currently our table is empty. So for that, this is the port, okay? So just copy this 8080. So this is like a default port. So I will just come to my postman, and here we need to change this port to 8080. Okay, important thing. I will say you the important thing what we need to do. So it's going to be localhost colon 8080, and here we are going to do post data. So just click here the operation and change it to post. Really important thing, many people won't do that. And after that you need to come to body, and it will be none at default, I guess. Body none. You need to go to raw after that, and you need to have like this, okay, the format. I'm inserting here only name and mark values because my ID is auto-generated. As I told you, right, my ID value is auto-generated because of this generated value annotation. So that's the reason why I'm not referencing ID over here. I'm having only name and mark values sent as a request body. So you need to have raw, have name within double quotes, hello within double quotes, mark key within double quotes, and since 100 is of type int, no need double quotes to that. Okay, be careful there as well. After that, here also important thing, you need to have this type as JSON. Okay, you need to change this to JSON. I think it will be text by default. If you put text, it will give an error. So I have it as JSON, another important thing. And I think, yeah, that's it. These are the important things. Operation, and you need to change the path as well. So the path that we have specified in our controller, where is controller? Yeah, student controller, this particular path should come over here. You need to be careful with the cases as well. So I will just change it to some meaningful name. Okay, I will just put not meaningful, hello, hi, something like that, like this. And I will go with 1000 as the mark, some random thing. If I just now send it, so it's sending request. Yeah, so we have got the result over here. So we have got the result as a response because we are like returning it. Okay, here you can see that we have returned that particular thing, and we have got this thing. And if I just now go to my MySQL table and run it, so here you can see that I've got the value 1, which is auto generated. I'm not sending ID over here, and the name and mark are coming. So now we are done posting some data, and let's get into our main part of the video, which is creating and writing custom queries. So currently I'm having these values in my table. I just posted and inserted them in my table. So let me just go to my IntelliJ, and let me just close all the files. Okay, let me just close all the files that are open now. Yeah. The first thing is, in which file we will be writing the custom query, because we have the controller, entity, repository, and service, right? So we will be writing our custom query in our repository file. So just go to your repository folder, and inside that you will be having the student repo. All right, and within this only we will be writing our custom query. So let me explain you in a brief what is a custom query. The custom query is exactly same as writing our normal SQL or MySQL queries. We will be just having the select asterisk from student, something like that, and we will be using the where clause and all the other conditions exactly in our Spring Boot code. So later we were using this Spring Boot codes, right? Like save, find by ID, delete, so many things, right? But now we will be able to use SQL queries directly in our Spring Boot code. So that's the use of this native or custom queries. Through this way, we will be able to customize our code to a great extent, because by default Spring Boots only provide us save, delete, save all. Like there are just standard functions that Spring Boot functions can do, but with the help of our custom queries we can just create one based upon our use case, which Spring Boot cannot provide us. So wherever you go, in case if you're working for a big organizations, they will be using your custom queries. All right, only in small tutorials they will use normal Spring Boot functions, but in bigger organizations custom query is must, and knowing it is also must. So enough talks, let's just go and create our first custom query. So just come inside your repository. So the first query that I'm going to write is going to be about fetching the entire list of data. Okay, I'm currently having these many data, right? This is a student object. Each row can be treated as an object of the class student. So this is the entity that I have. Let me open it again. So each row has ID, mark and name. So basically it's just an object. So let me just create a custom query that basically returns the entire list of this data, entire data present in the table basically. So let me just come to my IntelliJ now. So first thing is you will be using the query annotation. So just put at and you need to specify the query. So you'll be getting the first one there. Just put query and now just open circular bracket and we will be having the value. Okay, so it's going to be value equal to, and within double quotes inside this we will be writing our SQL query. And it's not exactly the same, we will make some alias names and changes. So let me also explain you that. So we are going to fetch the entire data, right? So in SQL it is going to be select asterisk from your table name. Okay, so it's going to be student, what is the table name we give? Student DB. Yeah, this is plain SQL command, right? So this is a table name, student DB is my table name. So this is going to be our plain SQL command, but here this won't work. We need to make some modifications to it. So what we will do is we can't use the table name directly over here. That's the first thing. So in my SQL DB, I'm having student DB as my table name. So I cannot use the table name that is present in my MySQL workbench directly here. So we need to only specify the class name that we have mapped to the table. So in the student class, we are mapping that student DB over here, right? And the class name of that particular table is going to be student. So I need to specify this rather than specifying that table name directly. So you need to specify the class name or the entity name that you have mapped with your table that is present inside your MySQL. So rather than student DB, it is going to be my class name, and it is case sensitive, so be careful there. It's going to be student, and we can't use asterisk directly here. Also we need to have a alias name. So let me just go with yes. So it's going to be select yes from student space yes. So basically we are referencing our table name with this alias name yes. So it means exactly the same thing, but in custom queries we need to refer through alias names. We'll be referring table names through alias names. That can be any word or it can be a single character. So by default many people go with character, so I also went with character. It's just short and sweet. So this is going to be the command, like so similar to normal or native MySQL command, and we will be mapping this query to a function. So how it works is that whenever we call a function in our service, this query will be triggered. All right, so we have to map this to a function. So how are we doing is that, just come to the next line. It's going to be public space, and here you need to specify the return type of this query. So what did I tell you earlier? We will be returning the entire data present in my table, and each row is of type student. because the entity is type student, right? So each row is going to be an object of the class student. So basically we are returning like 4 to 5 rows, I guess. So this is going to be list of student. All right, list of the type student. So it's going to be list of the type student over here. So in case if I am returning only one object, then it's going to be only student. But since I am returning multiple rows, this is going to be of type list student. So I think I need to import list. Yeah, alt enter. First one, java.util. And after this, we need to specify our function name. So it's going to be fetch all from custom, something like that. And later in the video, I'll be explaining you how you can pass arguments to the function and use that particular argument value in our query also. So much more is yet to come. So this is done. I'm done with my function in the repository. So now we will be calling this custom query function from our service. So for this, let me just go to my service and let me just open it and let me just go up. So here I'm having my post data. Okay, I'm just having public student and I'm just posting the data. So okay, I'm going to just create a function. So it's going to be public and the return type is going to be list of student. Okay, so you need to specify the same return type here also. It's going to be list of student and you need to just have another function name which is going to be fetch all over here, and we are not taking any arguments as of now. So let me just leave it as blank and we need to use the return, and here we need to use the same repository name. So I have defined the student repo variable over here. So you need to use this repository name. It's going to be student repo dot, and now we need to use our custom query name which is fetch all from custom. So I'll just type fetch all from custom. Yeah, so this will be coming over here. So now we are done with our service. The final thing that we want to do is create our controller. So I'll just go to my controller now. I'll just go up. So let me just open it, open curly bracket, and let me just have public. It's going to be list, again same list of students. It's going to be list of student, and let me just have fetch controller, and we are not going to pass any arguments. So let me just leave it as blank, and here we are going to do fetch mapping. Okay, we are going to fetch data. We are not going to post or do something. We're just going to get the data. So it's called as get mapping, not fetch mapping. It's get mapping. So it's going to be get capital G, get mapping, and here we need to specify the path. So I'll just have it as custom fetch. So this path is the path that we'll be basically giving in our postman. So you can see right over here. Okay, so now we are good, and we need to call that particular service. So inside the service we are having this function, right? So we will be calling this over here. So it's going to be our service. My service name is student service. So I've just created an object of my student service over here. Let me just come here. It's going to be student service dot my function name in my service, which is fetch all. That's it, fetch all. So it's going to be fetch all. That's it. And another thing that you need to note here is that this should have return. Yeah, this should have return. And yeah, you need to also make sure that you are adding this return because we are returning list of students. So you need to make sure that you are returning this. So now we are good. So let me just now rerun my project. So this is a rerun button. You need to just rerun it, and let me just also copy the path over here. So it is starting now. Let me just go to my postman, and in the postman you need to make some changes. First thing is you need to make sure that the operation is get, and you also need to make sure that the path is http://localhost 8080, the port number. You need to be careful over there, and you need to specify the path here. So in my case it's going to be /fetch custom fetch or something like that. Yeah, this is good, and you shouldn't have anything in the body also. So just make sure that your body is none. Okay, so just click on body and you will be having the none over there. Yeah, it should be none like this. So my application has started now. So let me just go to Postman, and if I just send it, so here you can see I am getting the list of students. So I'm getting basically the entire data that is present inside my table. So our custom query is now working fine, and here you can see this is the query that has been executed. Okay, this is like the real query. Here you can see select, and we are having our real table name that is present in the DB. So this is getting executed. So this is well and good now. Now let's see how we can pass parameters or arguments to our custom query. So let me just go to my repository again. So what we can do is, in my table, I'm having these many things, right? So let me just pass a name, okay, which is of type string. Let me just pass a name, and with the help of that name, we will be displaying the entire row. So it's going to be, if I pass Ben, we will be getting 720 and Ben in the output. As simple as that, okay? But we'll be passing Ben as an argument. So let's see how we can do that. So first thing, just come to our repository, and let me just copy the exact same query, because it's going to be kind of copy of that. So let me just paste it. So what we will be using here is that, let me just change the name first. It's going to be fetch using name. Okay, so now we need to have some argument or parameter inside this function. So for that, what we will be using is the param annotation. So just put at, it's going to be param. Okay, and inside this you have to specify a variable name. So let me just specify it as val, and we just put space over here, and this name that we will be passing is of type string. Okay, so we will just have here string name. Okay, so this is going to be the thing over here, and what we will be doing here is that from student yes where, and our column name. Okay, our column name is, for this one is name, and inside my class, inside student also, that column name is name. Okay, so you need to have this, the data member of that particular column. So I'll just come here where name equal to colon val. So I hope this makes sense now. The string that we are specifying inside this param annotation should come inside our custom query, and you need to also have this colon, which means that basically we will be getting the value of this parameter inside that. We are just replacing this particular thing with a value that we are passing to this fetch using name function. And another thing is that we will be returning only a single row. Okay, when we run this command, we will be returning only a single row, because we are assigning with name, and I'm having like unique names over here. So in that case, we won't be returning a list, we will be returning a single row. So it's going to be only return type of student. Okay, no need of having list of student. Yeah, so this is good now. And let me just go to my service. Let me just now copy this same thing, and I will just have it as, yeah, it is not list. First thing, let me change it to student, and it's going to be fetch using name, and this is not the function, it's going to be dot fetch using name. Okay, so now there are two ways. One thing is that you can specify the name from here, from your call itself. You can pass your name through the URL path itself, but let me just now hard code it. Okay, let me just hard code the name, and later I will show you how we can pass a particular number or a name from the URL and then integrate with our custom query too. So I'll also show you that. So now I'm just hard coding it. So in my DB or table, I'm having the name as Ben. So let me just go with, inside double quotes, let me go with Ben. Okay, so what happens here is that inside student repo, we are calling this function fetch using name, and we are passing the argument or string as Ben. It goes inside our student repo, and inside the student repo, it will map that particular value Ben with this variable val. So basically this val will have the value as Ben, and this can be anything. This needn't necessarily be name or something. This can be any random variable. Just go with name, something like that too. Yeah, no problem. And what will happen is that it's going to be select yes from student, yes, where name equal to, rather than this colon val, we will be having here ben, which is the value that we are passing from here. So this particular command will run and it will go here in the DB. We are having 720 ben. This is a object of student, so this will return, yeah, and we are returning it, and that will come over here, yeah, and we are returning a student. So this is what happens. So here you can see, right, this is, you can have it as anything. So make sure that you are having this thing, you have to use colon, okay, be careful with this. Okay, now we are done. Final thing is we need to create a controller. Okay, so let me just copy the same thing. This is also going to be get call. We are not going to modify anything. And let me just now change this to custom name something, and it's going to be fetch name, and it's going to be fetch using name, and we need to have the return type as student. Alright, now we are good. Let me just now restart my application. So my application has now restarted. So let me just copy the path and let me go to Postman, and let me just paste it over here. And if I hit send, so here you can see I'm getting ID 720 Ben, and the reason is because 720 Ben over here, yeah, we are sending the value Ben over here. So if I send any other value, we will be getting that corresponding row. Okay, so now let's see how we can pass multiple values. So here we are passing Ben, right? Let me also pass another mark. Okay, so let me just go with a mark. Okay, let me just go with mark. Yeah, so mark is of type integer, right? So I'll be having here student, and mark is of type integer. So let me just come here to that student repo. I will make modifications here itself. It's going to be the same thing, it's going to be the same return, and I've just had here another thing, another param, and I'll just have it as m for mark, and it's going to be int mark some variable. Okay, and what I can do is I've just have here and mark. So this mark corresponds to my data member for that column. So here you can see this mark equal to colon, and now similar to this val that we have specified over here, I'll be specifying here m because that is my reference variable. All right, so in the function I'll just change the name to Jim, and I'll just put a comma, and now we need to pass the mark. So Jim has a mark of 1, and I will just pass a wrong mark. I will pass it as 2. And now if you run this code and hit a request from Postman, we shouldn't get anything from the output, because here I'm having a AND condition. So we will be getting a result only if both the things are satisfied. So now let's just run and see this. Let me run it. Okay, application has started. So let me just send the same request. I won't be getting anything because there it doesn't satisfy. Yeah, it's a blank response. So let me just now change that mark to 1, and I will rerun it again, and this time we will be getting this first row's value because for Jim. And I will just go here and let me just change it to 1, and again rerun it again. So the application has restarted, and if I go and hit send, and this time I'm getting the value. Perfect. So this works fine. And final thing that I wanted to show you is how to get value through a path variable and use it in our custom query. So first let me create the custom query. So this time I will be passing the mark. So I'll be directly passing the mark from our URL over here, like /100 or something, and I'll just use this mark in our custom query. All right, let's see how that can be done. let me just now go to the code. Yeah, and we'll be using the exact same thing. This is going to be the same copy paste and just modification. So I'll just copy this and I'll just paste it here, and the query is going to be select yes from student. Yes, this is fine, where mark equal to that's it. We just need mark because we are going to get everything with the help of mark. And here I will just have fetch using mark and only one parameter. I'm not going to pass two, so let me just remove the second parameter, and I'll just have here and it's going to be of type integer. It's going to be mark, something like this. Another thing that you need to note here is that I have kept the return type as student because I'm just having unique marks. So marks are unique for me. So I'm just having the type as student, and in case if you're having multiple marks which are same, you need to have list of student. Okay, be careful there. But this is the query. Yeah. So now we are good with the query, and let me just go to my service. I'll just copy this thing, paste it using mark, and let me just now remove this. So it's going to be dot fetch using mark, and here we need to pass an integer. So let me just go here and type int mark, and here only mark. Okay, and we will be passing this from our controller. Let me just go to the controller. I'll just copy this too, paste it. It's going to be the same get mapping. It's going to be custom mark, and I'll just have it as fetch mark, and rather than having this function, we will replace it with our fetch using mark function. So it's here fetch using mark. So this is the thing, and we are ready to go. We have to make some changes to the path. So since we are using the mark in our URL, as I told you, we'll be having this /100 or something. We need to have another slash over here, and within curly bracket I will just have it as mark, and inside the function we will use the annotation at path variable, and it's going to be int mark. So this name and this name should be the same. Okay, this mark and this mark, I need to have this annotation also. After that, you are just going to pass the mark variable. That's it. Now we are good. So let me just now copy this path and just restart it. And in the meantime, let me go to my postman. Get everything is fine. Let me just replace this with mark, and here we need to pass the mark as 100. And if I hit this request, we need to get the output as 10 John, because that is the only row that I'm having with mark as 100. So we will be getting this row. And let me just now explain you how this is working. So let me just close this. So if I hit send, it goes to my controller. Controller is over here. So it takes the value mark 100. It goes here, passing mark as the argument. It goes here, mark, and we will be calling our custom query function. So it goes here, mark is going to be 100, and this will run this query, select yes from student where mark as 100, and we will be returning this student object, which is going to be this last row, 10 John. That value will be coming over here. Here also we are returning it, and we are returning it here also, and from this return it will come to our postman. This is how it works. So let me just now, the application has started, and let me just now send the request in my postman. So here you can see I'm getting ID 10, mark 100, and John. So this is working perfectly. So I think these are the multiple variations how you can use custom queries. So I hope you would have found this video useful. Do check the playlist of my channel. I've done a lot of tutorials using Spring Boot, Node.js, CRUD operations in MongoDB and MySQL, as well as programming tutorials in C, C++, Java, Python, Figma, UI, and 3D animation using Blender. Check them out, subscribe me. Thanks for watching.